The history of the charter, the current charter controversy, goes back to 1995. At that time, a committee was appointed by Archbishop Yakovos. They came up with some proposals that would really enhance the autonomy of the archdiocese. They sent a draft to the Patriarchate and it was rejected. I understand that the letter that was sent back was a terrible, terrible letter, basically saying, sober up to the Archbishop. This is an uncanonical, secular document. Unless it's withdrawn, immediately serious consequences will be imposed on the perpetrators. And so that charter, proposed charter draft was withdrawn, and nothing happened, and then the Archbishop was retired, resigned, whatever, and now we had Archbishop Spirit, and he appointed a new committee of people that mostly no one ever had heard of, and they started working on a draft of the charter. Again, this was not at the request of any Clergy Lady Congress. Nobody had asked that the charter nobody from the church in America, no clergy and laity in this country asked for a change in the charter. But it became known that this charter was being drafted. So in 1998, Clergy Lady Congress in Orlando, Florida, which was the only Clergy Lady Congress that Archbishop Spirit presided over, George Matsoukas and I were approached by a metropolitan in the coffee shop. He said, "You've got to come up to my room. We've got to talk." Situation at that time, there was already controversy with Archbishop Spirit and having fired the priests, professors at the seminary. There was a lot of tension, but he said, "Look, the situation is worse than you people in OCL know. It's horrible. The Archbishop isn't even convening meetings of the synod, and he's working on a charter, and we're not even included. There's no inclusion of the hierarchs in this charter committee. He's got his own committees working on a charter." So he really implored delegates to the Clergy Lady Congress, who were also members of OCL, to make a motion to expand the charter committee to include the hierarchs. So a motion was made, I think George made it, and seconded and adopted, that the charter committee, this semi-secret committee that was working on a charter revision, should include the hierarchs, each of the bishops of the diocese, and one clergy member and 2 lay people from each diocese, so that there would be some input. Well, charter is still out there. It hasn't been shown to anybody. Nobody's seen it. I understand not even the Archdiocesan Council had actually seen this document. But under pressure, essentially from OCL and press releases and comments and everything else, eventually the charter is made public to a few people, and they're going to try and get it approved, and then they say suddenly, "Oh, what about this 1998 resolution that we should have representatives from the diocese? We should have 2 lay people, and we should have a clergyman. We got to expand this committee." So they pick a few people from the diocese. They call a meeting in New York. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Call a meeting in New York. They have all these people there, and they distribute copies of the charter to them. And they tell them, "You've got an hour or 2, take a look at it and tell us what you think." "Well, wait a minute, you know, this is an important thing. Maybe we should have more than a couple hours." "Well, maybe we'll have 3 or 4 hours." They're looking at it, and they're told, "You can't take it with you. You cannot take a copy with you. And if you make any notes, you can't take your notes with you. You have to leave the room without anything." I mean, this now is the input of the laity into this charter process. The history now goes on. The Archdiocese and Council is finally brought in, either before this meeting or after. I don't have the time right in front of me, but they look at it and they come up with some concerns. They actually say, you know, there's things wrong with this thing, and they issue a list of concerns about this proposed charter. Again under pressure, the Archdiocese finally sends copies to the parishes shortly before the Clergy Lady Congress. of 2002 in Los Angeles. So the parishes finally get to see this, and they're invited to give comments. And I don't know how many parishes, 100 parishes maybe,
190.
send some comments in.
And they have 15 days.
Okay. And that's, you know, that's it now. You've sent in your comments. Thanks a lot. You know, have a nice day. It's not going to be discussed, and it's not going to be voted on. It's not on the agenda of the Clergy Lady Congress. So we all go to Los Angeles, and the people are up in arms. I mean, you know, there's been a lot of publicity. There's been a lot of anguish over this. People, the delegates are arriving there expecting to have some input into this charter. And it's not on the agenda. And eventually they say, well, we're going to allow a discussion, but here's a piece of paper. Every delegate gets a piece of paper that says, no vote will be allowed to reject the charter in whole or in part. So, you know, this is the highest legislative body of the Archdiocese under the 77 Charter. So you're there, and you're not allowed to vote on this charter. So what are you going to do? You're going to have a discussion. So Eleni Hazek, who's been on this committee from the beginning, gets up, and the discussion consists of article by article being presented by Eleni Hazek, essentially putting her spin on every single article at great length, taking lots of time. No opportunity for people to really say, wait a minute. Eventually, people are able to get up and start saying, well, wait a minute, I'd like to propose an amendment to this. I don't like this. I don't like that. The conversation goes on for a day and a half, 2 days. And you just see the outpouring of input from the lay delegates from the parish and some clergy. So they come up with just many amendments to the proposed charter, which are supposed to go to the Patriarchate and be considered by the Patriarchate. In effect, some attempts to make resolutions are ruled out of order, but eventually Dr. John Karcazes, who's a member of the Executive Committee of the Archdiocesan Council, makes a motion which sets forth in 3 sections, or 4 sections, the proposals that everybody else has been talking about, which essentially restore the Sindiaconia or the Comunidad. They make the Clergy Lady Congress again the important body that it was under the 77 Charter, that it still is supposedly, and restores this balance and input from the Archdiocesan Council and the Clergy Lady Congress. So those proposals, all of them go to the Patriarchate, and eventually a charter is now issued by the Patriarchate and then sent out by the Archbishop to all the parishes saying, this is your charter. It doesn't take into consideration 99% of the amendments that were proposed by the Clergy Lady Congress, and it is just basically what was proposed before, and we can get into the details of it, but essentially that's the history of the present charter controversy. The parishes that have so far spoken out and made resolutions basically are saying there's got to be a vote on this issue. It must be on the agenda in the 2004 Congress in New York City at the end of July, and we should be permitted an opportunity to vote up or down by a written ballot.